So according to NBC News exit polling, the economy was one of the top issues on the minds of voters as they cast their ballots on Tuesday.
Funny that they needed an exit poll.
Joining us now with charts is former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner. And Steve, you are looking at the metrics that fueled Trump's win. Let's start with the issue of income.
Now understand, as they're going through this is what I call post-mortem. The post-mortem is you look back on what people care about, and you're saying, okay, here's why it happened. Here's why Trump was elected. And the funny thing about this is this data didn't happen yesterday. This data didn't happen on November 6th. They've known this data for probably a year because I've known it. Many of you have known it. Many of you have lived it. And now they're just telling people, oh, well, this seems to be why Trump won. They didn't care about the equity or the DEI or the newcomers or the transform. They only cared about money. You've had this data and you kept it from your audience, and now you got to tell them, well, here's what really happened.
What did the numbers tell you?
Yeah, of course, Mika, this is at the heart of the matter for almost every American. What is my purchasing power?
Imagine being on this network and this is the heart of the matter for Americans. And you're a news network that was supposed to be presenting news all along, and now after it's over, after Kamala's been kicked to the curb, now you want to tell your listeners.
How much can I buy? What's happening to my standard of living? And so let me show you what actually did happen over the last really decade or so. But if you go back to 2014, and these are all inflation-adjusted incomes. This is what you have after inflation. Incomes rose fairly steadily at about a rate of 1.3% all the way through the Trump administration. Now, 1.3% may not sound like a big number, but that's after inflation. That's more money that you have to spend.
Oh, so we were prosperous during the Trump administration. I'm sorry. I thought MSNBC said no. There's no going back. We're not going back. Oh, okay.
Ignore this. This was a COVID distortion. During the Biden administration, you can see that they actually went down for a while. That was that big burst of inflation that we had. And then lately they've been coming back. And when all is said and done, they were basically flat for this period. And this bothers Americans, and they feel that it was even worse because they don't really see these numbers, this chart exactly, but they feel this, and they don't quite feel this, and so they basically say inflation is what's hurting them, and in fact, incomes did not do as well in the Biden administration as in the Trump administration.
Huh? I'm sorry. Did MSNBC just said that income didn't do as well under the Biden administration than it did during the Trump administration? I'm stunned, because for the last 4 years you've been saying, oh, we're not going back. So we're not going back to prosperity. Your guy just said with a sullen face that Biden didn't do as well financially as under Trump. You're admitting it to the public that you've been lying for 4 years. And most of the people who on your station probably have no idea what this guy's even talking about. That's why I think it's important for you to understand it, because it's actually good data.
We just have to put that out there.
Oh, that's a mea culpa. We just have to let you. We got to say it. We got to say the truth. Incomes were better under Trump. Now you want to tell everybody, right? On November 7th, you want to tell everybody the incomes were better when Trump was president. Thanks, bud.
So Steve, let's continue through the charts. So talk about the disconnect between how well America's economy is doing. We hear it all the time. America is the envy of the world. Every world leader says they would love to change trade places with the United States. The U.S. dollar at an all-time are moving towards an all-time high. The stock market at an all-time high. S&P at an all-time high. Talk about the overall economy, and then this segment of the economy that you say for working class Americans that you think drove the election in Donald Trump's direction.
Remember, as he gets ready to say this, all this data, they didn't make these charts yesterday. Well, they may have made the charts yesterday, but the data has been in place for years.
Sure, Joe. So yes, as we've talked about on the show, I think as recently as last week, the American economy overall is doing fantastically well. The envy of the world, everything we've been talking about, growth, low.
If you compare it to Ecuador,
low unemployment and inflation coming down. But let's talk about how it affects the average American. One of the big things that I believe is lurking behind the fact that you have this huge right track, wrong track, upside down poll numbers that we've all seen so much of is the American dream and the question of whether the American dream is still there. So let's just look at this one chart. If you go back to 1940, 90% of young Americans would, by the age of 30 rather, make more money than their parents did. That has come steadily down. Some of that is somewhat natural as we became more prosperous, but it just continues to go down and down and down and down, and now you're down here at 50%. So only 50% of American parents should believe or will find that their son or daughter is making as much or more as they're making at the age of 30.
When was America great? They keep asking. Let's make America great again. When was America great? Before it fell off the flipping cliff that you're showing. That's when America was great. America was great before you built a ski slope. What happened in all those years to where people couldn't buy homes? That's when America was great. When he just answered Trump's slogan right there. So many young people don't feel that they have anything to work for. It's not going to be attainable. And then you've got people who question, what the hell is he talking about? When was America great? And just show them that chart. Maybe you don't remember because you just were never able to get on the top end of that slope. But when you look at that slope, you're like, oh, so it was a long time ago, huh? Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah. Make America great again. You laughed at it. You called it racist. You called it Hitlerian. You called it every kinds of name, fascist, because you didn't understand there's a chart that describes when America was great. How do we get back to that?
That's not the American dream. The American dream is obviously each generation is supposed to do better than the one before.
All right, and then your final.
Devastating. It's amazing. They just found this out. Oh my, what happened? How did you just find out that America used to be great and then it's fallen off a cliff? Unbelievable.
Chart, Steve, is about industrial wages falling behind. Tell us about it.
Well, actually, Mika, before we do that, can I do my middle chart, which we didn't
do? Your middle chart.
What's your middle chart? Yeah, we just hurry up and get off the air.
Fun.
Because it's in the same theme of what happens.
Okay.
So, and all the income inequality that we've had in this country over the last 20 years has led to some very different outcomes. If you're a white child born in the bottom 25th percentile, so now we're back to the famous white working class. If you were born in 1978 versus being born in 1992, on an inflation-adjusted basis, a child born in 1992 had 6% less income after inflation, all that, at the age of 30, than at the age of 27 rather, than a child born back here in 1978. So children are in this cohort of a white working class are making less and less and less.
When was America great? Tell me. Donald Trump keeps saying America's great. When was America great? Before shit hit the bed. Before shit hit the fan. What happened? Why are we no longer prosperous?
Each birth year that they have. In contrast, for the people at the top, they've actually been making a bit more for each child born. So you have this situation where children of white working class parents are making less each child year after year as they're born. They're completely the opposite at the top.
So people who got money get money. People who don't have money, it's no good for them. And that's who Trump has been talking to. Meanwhile, MSNBC has been talking to people in that yellow line. What do you mean? Everything's fine. The economy is great. I don't know what you guys are talking about. We're fine. We got limos. We go to the great parties. Oh, you people who work in, your plumbers, your electricians, you guys? Yeah, I'm sorry, it didn't work out. But for us, it's great. It's always been great. It's a straight line. It never changed. Look at that. If you're up here, the line never changed. They've been great the entire time. It's you other people down below who ain't feeling it.
So let's also compare millennials to baby boomers. I'm a baby boomer, and see what their different situation is. So if you talk about home ownership, baby boomers, 62% of baby boomers owned a home. 49% of millennials owned a home at the same age of 35. So millennials worse off. If you look at negative net worth, i.e. being bankrupt, 14% of millennials are bankrupt by the age of 35.
What? 14% of millennials are bankrupt by the age of 35. Again, they knew all of this. These stats, this data has been in place the entire time. Why in the hell did they decide today that they're going to release that to their audience? Because basically they're underscoring everything Trump has said. When was America great? When I wasn't having to see 14% of millennials file bankruptcy.
Only 9% of boomers were. If you look at wealth, millennials have on average 30% less wealth than baby boomers had at the same point in their life. But the top 10% of millennials actually had more wealth than the baby boomers. So you have huge wealth inequality among millennials. So
why is that? Because they were in that yellow line. They came from that family with the yellow line back when, America was great.
These are all reasons why people feel that the American dream isn't what it was supposed to be.
All right, now you can go to it.
Sorry,
all right.
Mika.
This is stunning.
Thanks so much.
Industrial wages.
Right. So I just heard some conversation about this, and you can see it right here very clearly.
Yeah.
What's been happening? What's been happening is that the relative incomes, who's making more relative to the average versus less than the average, has been shifting. It's been shifting in favor of the coast. We were talking a few minutes ago about the coast and the blue states. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, you can see that their income relative to the national average, which was always a little bit higher, has now soared up here.
Now do you understand why these people don't get it? They live in their bubbles in California and in the Northeast. I lived in Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. I've seen this firsthand. I remember when I was went to college and high school, and we were going to go down south for spring break, and everyone kept telling me, watch out for, be careful when you go down south, okay? Things are different down south, okay? Those people down there, they got cornfields and cotton fields, and, they don't watch you out after sundown. They're kind of slow. That's how people up in the north really think. And they think that because they've been able all this time to prosper. It never hurt them. Look at that. That's New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. The ones who thumb their nose up at the rest of people, where their studio is.
The Midwestern states, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, you can see that their incomes, which were a little bit above, but basically average, are now well below average.
So how could you, as a politician running for president, think you're going to get the states like Ohio, Oklahoma, Idaho? How are you even going to compete in those states when everyone in those states know you're just an elitist from the Northeast? That's all you are. And you're thumbing your nose up at us, and we're down here dying. We're trying to figure out how we can make ends meet. And you're like, when was America great again? When our charts were higher. That's when America was great again. When our charts were very similar to yours back then. When you look at that red line at one point is almost equal to Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts. And then what happens? Boom. They got lots of money. Y'all down there, you're suffering. Now you know why Donald Trump won. Now you know why his entire slogan caught so many people. Make America great again. And MSNBC is a fraud. MSNBC is basically has been committing fraud on the American people since probably they first started broadcasting. You got Rachel Maddow making $30 million a year. I think Joy Reid makes $4 or $5 million a year. These people are all making so much money. They don't even understand how people are trying to figure out how to pay their bills and decide, should I pay this so that I can pay my car payment? Should I pay the babysitter? Or should I buy some groceries? Because it doesn't affect them. And they get on television every single night and speak to the same people like them. They don't care about the rest of America. And then Kamala Harris, she gets up there and basically says the same thing. Why the hell are you bringing up John Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, Oprah, Cardi B? Why are you flaunting these millionaires, gazillionaires in my face? I'm not like them. And with what you want to do, I'll never be like them. And they wonder now, as they're doing all their postmortems, why she lost.
Why has that happened? It's happened a lot because of what's happened to the wages of mostly white working class Americans who work in factories. Mm-hmm. So here you can see a tool and die maker back in 1980 had almost 20% higher income than the national average.
I'll say it again until it sinks in. When was America great again? Can we go back to when I was getting paid there? I'm a steel worker. I'm a factory worker. You know, before you started selling off our interest to all these other countries, these people were doing well.
Today, a tool and die maker has about 15% lower income than the national average. Machinists, metal fabricators, welders and solders,
yeah,
their incomes all have gone down to well below the national average.
These people were sinister. They hid all of this data. And it's not data that's probably new to many of you. You're like, yeah, we known it. Yeah, they've known it too. Why they're picking today to show it? I'm like, wow. Are they really showing people that you've been screwing America by worrying about Ukraine and this country and that country? Meanwhile, the income has just been sliding off the table for blue-collar people?
A lot of this has to do with the decline in unionization, the effect of imports, lots of things we can talk about. But the bottom line is these folks are making a lot less money compared to their other Americans than they used to. And so average incomes in the States are also lower.
That explains a lot. Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner.
Oh, that explains a lot. That's a euphemism. It explains everything.